I turned the hat forward, okay?
This is Auto Collabs.
When you're doing Auto Collabs, you gotta
It's
have
got to
the
be
hat
fancy.
forward.
No, Kyle, if you're just listening, he had his hat backwards when we hit the record button, and he all of a sudden had this look like he just forgot to put on underwear, and he flipped his hat around.
I feel like I need something wintry.
Oh, would you now? Okay, so
You
Michael
can't
just
wear
put on.
Carhartt beanie
Hold
in
on.
Texas.
So
That's
Okay,
not
hold on.
allowed.
Well, if it's gonna be in Texas, the Carhartt one makes the most sense in my opinion.
My
It does
kid
make
hates
the
it.
most
It's like
sense.
not a
I leave
Burton
the-
one. Like, where you skiing?
Yeah, he's wearing it more California though, just kind of like sitting on top, like it's like you want it to keep you warm, but you don't really need it.
But he
you
really
know?
just likes Coldplay,
Yeah.
right? so let's settle something really quickly because
Yeah.
Kyle called it a beanie,
Yeah.
right? I've called it a beanie before, or a ski hat. What do you call those in Canada?
A toque.
A toque.
Yeah.
A toque?
I don't even know how to spell it. I
No,
want to say
I knew it was something.
Q-U-E. A toque.
That sounds like a very Canadian spelling of a
Yes.
toque. I've heard it called a toboggan. Have you ever heard that?
Well, a toboggan is this
Is the sled. I know. It was some Midwest person that was like, "Oh no, that's a
I need
toboggan."
names. They
Like,
need
gotta
to go
expect
into
you
the
to
"We
say
Can Never
that.
Trust Them" book.
I know,
Yeah, you can't trust someone that calls a hat a toboggan.
But-
that doesn't.
yeah, hey, it just
This
sounds
is
like a real Midwest way.
Yeah, there's all sorts of
call it.
weird things like this. I mean, speaking of
How are you going to get into today's guest?
speaking of
Navigate
winter,
that real quick.
Actually, I can see today's guest like rocking a ski hat or a beanie or a toque or whatever you want to call it.
yes, and I was gonna
California
say, I have
style.
to ask him how his vehicles fare in the winter because that's always a question we get.
Yeah. It
We
is
talk
when it
to
comes to
EVs.
EVs for sure. And Alex is just, I don't know, he's just kind of like a cool guy. You could just see it from his media and the energy of the brand that like it's not just an EV play. He's also a professor, so we'll figure out that. And he's just got a vibe and an energy to him. So he could wear a hat like that, Michael. So unintentional but well placed toque today. Well, we hope you enjoy this conversation that we're about to have with our guest today, founder of EV Cars and EV Auto, Alex. I just don't want to say his last name. Hey, Alex, thank you so much for joining us today. This is a real treat. It's kind of outside our usual circle of guests, so it's got us all excited.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
I have to compliment you first. If you're just listening to this, I'm going to describe it for you. Alex is wearing a beautiful white hat. It's not quite flat brim. It's good curved brim. Nice looking hat. And it's got bright pink stylized letters EV on it. Tell us about the hat.
Yeah, I mean, we're proud of our merch. So, EV Autos, the brand, the business, and the logo feels like something that people are okay to support, even if they're not like huge EV people sometimes, just because it's kind of cool looking. It's kind of different. But yeah, we spent quite a bit of time, building something that we think is wearable. And the hats are a good example of that. We got probably a half a dozen different color combos and styles and stuff. And they go fast, man.
Close to our hearts. So
gone.
close to our hearts.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I knew you were our people the moment I laid eyes on you.
That's exactly it. That's it. So you've had like a rich history, not all in auto. What created well, I guess like give us the bullet points, and maybe we'll dig into them in a second. Give us the bullet points outside of auto, and then what was the reason for jumping into the EV auto retailing space?
Yeah. So, I mean, my first real business was detailing cars, actually. So I've always loved cars.
I knew I liked him.
See, now you and Paul. Okay,
Yeah.
Paul, Michael and I will see ourselves out now.
I already know what your favorite smells in the whole world are. I already know. Go ahead.
It's funny because I just made that connection in a podcast interview a couple weeks ago. I'm like, wait a minute. My first like real business, it was called Perfection on Wheels Detailing. Pretty creative name too, right?
Too.
And I printed out flyers on my dad's computer, and I went to the neighborhood on the East Bench above where I lived and just went door to door and was just like, hey, I'll detail your car to the rich people,
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always loved cars. I put every dime I had into my first car, like way too much money into it. That's all I spent my money on. But I'm not a car guy. There's a difference here. I should tell you this. I love cars, but this is a quick story. I had this insane stereo in my car, and you know that sound dampening material that's like got a sticky
Dynamat. Yeah.
yeah, Dynamat. Thank you. So I ripped everything out of my car all the way down to the metal and dynamated the
The
whole
whole
thing,
thing.
and then put the whole car back and had like 2 handfuls of bolts left over that I had no idea where they
I
went.
just cut the weight of this vehicle by another 6 pounds.
Yeah, because I didn't know, you know, I'm not good at fixing cars or working on cars, any of that stuff.
Did it rattle more after you put the dynamite in?
No, it was
Oh,
great.
okay.
It totally worked, but there was definitely some stuff missing that I have no idea where it went, and so I just kind of checked those. So yeah, so lifelong entrepreneur. You know, my first half of my career, I was just opportunistic. Got involved in some franchises, food franchises. Didn't have any particular affinity for them or experience, no family connection, nothing like that. But they were successful as a young guy, and so I just kept doing that. Right, you just kind of parlay one into the next. Went to college, had an okay experience, but didn't love it. Stayed with franchising until we had sold enough of the franchises to recognize, hey, I can do other things now. I have a choice, and I've always been a very early adopter, tech geek, gadgets, hardware, software, and so chose tech and built one of the very first third-party apps for Twitter. Started an agency that built websites for small businesses back when they were a lot of small businesses didn't have websites, and so both of those grew really fast. You know, went back to school during that period of time, got another degree, started teaching a little bit just because I love that environment. I love, you know, being around that stuff, even though I didn't have a great educational experience historically. Built some tech businesses that ended up being pretty decent sized with some friends. Ran another one. Still, you know, enjoying cars all along the way. Eventually got a PhD from Oklahoma State and became a tenured college professor at Weber State, where we've got some connectivity there, some alum and family alum in the house. Still kind of starting and investing in businesses along the way. Weber's really supportive of me being an entrepreneur and a professor, which is super
It's amazing. He doesn't look a day over 93.
Cool. I'll be 50. I'll be 50 next year. And so, I mean, which is another funny story. A friend of mine's interviewing at this startup event, and he's like, and here's Alex. Alex is 50 years old and he started a business. I'm like, dude, I'm not 90. You know, it made it sound like, you know,
You never believe
right?
this guy.
You how old this
Right
guy is.
here.
If he can do it, you can do it too. You know,
He started a business at his ripe old age.
Yep, seriously, I was like kind of flattered, kind of embarrassed, but so the car business, you know, never intended to own a car dealership or be a car dealer. Saw an opportunity with my co-founder 4 years ago, a little longer than that, in 4 years in December next month, to create a marketplace. We were thinking for other people to buy and sell used electric vehicles because we were kind of whining about how difficult that was. And so acquired evcars.com and evtrucks.com and a bunch of other good domains, and started building this marketplace. But with my previous experience building software and other stuff, you know, I was either the customer myself, like deeply ingrained as the customer myself, or I was heavily involved with who my customer would be. And in this case, the paying customer for the marketplace would be car dealers. That's who would pay to list their cars. And so my co-founder had an old dealer's license. We dusted it off.
What state was this in?
Yeah, in Utah.
How long are they good for?
As long as you renew it and take the test every year, you know, and keep your
okay. So he was maintaining it. I didn't know if it was just like, no, once you have one in New York, it's like every 30 minutes you need to renew it.
No, yeah.
Give it to somebody else.
Yeah. No, it's not like the taxi coin or whatever, you know, it's not that high of
right, exactly.
You know, valued item. But bought a car at an auction, bought a Tesla at an auction, sold it on the local classifieds, made a few bucks. You know, and replicated that several times as we were building the software marketplace until it at one point about 2 years ago, it's like, wait a minute, we've got this pretty awesome business over here. And it feels like we're being disrespectful not to give it more attention. So anyway, that was a long answer to the last 35 years in a relatively,
35 years in 4 minutes is pretty good. That wasn't too bad. Yeah. That wasn't too bad. Yeah. I love that. I love like entrepreneurialism feels like creating a space for people to buy and service or buy and sell cars, because like historically people from maybe outside, people inside the auto industry
look at people outside of the auto industry as like, we have to get you to come over here. But there's this kind of like new attraction into auto from a tech or entrepreneur side of things. It's like people outside of auto are looking at it going, hey, there's an opportunity there that I could potentially take advantage of. I may never have done anything in that business sector, but it's exciting for me. What are those things that created excitement for you about the industry right now? What were the trigger things that said this is exciting outside of just the pain of shopping?
Yeah. I mean, EVs are so fun. I mean, I think, certainly there's
What's fun? Yeah. Why when you say that, right? Because a lot of people maybe listening have never driven one, and they hear mixed signals about like it's good, it's bad, it's easy, it's difficult. Like, why are EVs so fun?
And listen, they're not for everybody. I think I'm kind of counter to some of the big proponents of this industry, but they're fun because they're like supercomputers on wheels that are faster than a Ferrari. And so it's you get to
That's a good value prop.
Yeah.
It's a super cute computer on wheels that's faster than a Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean, and I still love Ferraris. That's the thing. You don't have to choose. You don't have to be on team A or team B. It doesn't have to be polarizing. And so, they're the most obvious, obviously, is the acceleration. I mean, I was listening to a podcast, a CEO of a very large chain. He's like, my daily driver is an EV and it never won't be. And it's for one reason. It's the acceleration. You just can't, if you love cars and you love going fast, once you experience that, it's addicting,
I love actually, if people haven't been, you've got a beta set up for EV cars. I was looking around it, and like, if you scroll down enough, there's this little section that says just how fast do you want to go? And you've got these filters that are like under 5 seconds. And it's like, then the last filter is just slow. Right.
Yeah. And
then it bounces them out to Carvana. Right.
That's great.
Just yesterday, I gave so we keep a company. We've got a Model S Plaid that we actually just got wrapped in a pretty ridiculous way. It's got Elon's face on the side of it, and very, very kind of polarizing to get attention. I'll have to show you guys a picture of it. It actually turned out pretty dope. But I just gave a family of 5. We have a road right next to us. It's long, straight, and empty. I mean, it couldn't be more perfect.
Sounds great.
And all 5 of them jumped in, and I hit it, and they all freak out. They've all got
try to touch the dashboard when I say 3. Right?
Yeah, I do. I say put your head against the headrest, and that happens all the time. So, but not just the speed. I mean, I also the self-driving is. I think every car I get into that doesn't have it now feels like the dumbest car ever made. So I just have to. Oh my gosh, I got to steer. I
got to tell you my experience with this. So my wife says I want a Tesla. So I'm like, are you sure? Did I just hear you say you want an F-150? She's like, yes, as long as it's a Tesla. So we buy this Tesla. I'm on a business trip in San Antonio with one of my partners. And he's like, have you put on the full self-driving yet? I'm like, no, I haven't yet. He's like, dude, just let's try it. So I go in, I tap the thing, I swipe, and now I've got full self-driving. I immediately notice how much more information it's visualizing, right? And we are freaked out. The first 3.5 minutes of this ride of self-driving, we're going through town. I look at him. He looks at me. We're clenched onto our seatbelts like this. Alex, I'm not kidding you when I say 15 minutes later, I realize I haven't looked at the road in about 10 minutes.
Oh boy.
Like, that's how quickly I was like, I had my experience was not like that. I don't know what road you were on.
Well, we were on the 35 freeway.
Okay.
And
I was on I-4 in Florida.
I was sitting, guys, like I was sitting like this, and we were just having conversation. So it's not like I was looking down or anything. And in fact, I think the car actually signals you to look back up.
Hard cut to Michael Cirillo just out.
But I was like sitting like this, and I realized I wasn't paying attention to, like, that's how quickly we both got comfortable with this self-driving. And then the second thing I will say, to your point about speed, when my wife and I first took delivery of this vehicle, and the guy's like, go find an open road and just floor it for a minute. Anybody who's driven an EV, especially a Tesla, are the few living people on this planet that knows what resurrection feels like, because our souls left our body and re-entered our body.
It's funny. I've never heard that
Yeah.
before.
Like I felt the ghost leave my body. Like it freaked me out how much power that thing had.
It's nuts.
Well, and it's not just, it's also, there's so many new ones coming out all the time. And so it feels like Christmas Eve for cars. Every month or two, there's something new coming out that I get to see. It's the Cybertruck right now. It's the Hummer SUV that we just picked up. I've got a Fisker that we have, and there just seems like there's a lot of new stuff. And if you're into tech and you're into gadgets and you're into software and hardware and cars, it's like this perfect combination of all of it. And again, it's our tagline too. We make buying cars fun again. It's just fun, And so I don't know how else to say it other than that, even though I still like driving a car too. And I still like engine noise too. So I'm like this weird person
I
likes,
feel that.
all of that.
Yeah.
So
Do you
anyway,
have to combat a lot of skepticism though? Like maybe that people are interested, but then they go, but Utah winters, like what is that going to look like? Because I know we hear a lot about that. Are you seeing a lot of that as well?
yeah, I mean, the crazy thing, these cars really, I mean, I would say the Model S Plaid is probably the most incredible car ever built, if you think about it objectively from all the checkpoints. So you've got all the hypercar, supercar stats in terms of horsepower and acceleration and top speed and all those kinds of things, right? But then you also say fits 4 sets of golf clubs and 5 adults at all those performance rates, and gets incredible energy efficiency, and doesn't require $700 oil changes and all these things that a lot of the super fast, super high performance cars. So there's that. But then you go over here into like the safety, super safe, really quiet, really comfortable. But then you look at performance in weather. Because they're so heavy, and because the weight is so evenly distributed, with the battery being the full base of the body and being all-wheel drive, and in often cases multi-motor all-wheel drive, they literally are the best cars in the snow you can ask for.
Probably for starting. I would say stopping because they're heavy might be a little squirrely.
I've driven now and have hardcore Utah winters for 5-6 years straight, my whole family.
Yep.
And I've never driven a better car in the snow, objectively. Like they
go.
They don't get stuck. They don't have problems. They get around easy. I mean, I've just never driven a better car in the snow. So
let's
there
talk.
you have it.
Let's talk about. I want to make sure we talk about the business because we don't have a ton of time left. So you're building this, and I think a lot of our audience will be introduced to you on this podcast for the first time. And like we'd love to connect dealers with resources and things that are like connect all the dots. So tell us about the business side of what you're building. And why you think it's a good place for dealers to, potentially list inventory.
Yeah. So, well, let me be clear. So evcars.com is not the business anymore. So evcars.com is actually now closed to dealers. We've changed. And so evcars.com is closed beta and is not going to be servicing dealer inventory anymore. It's only going to be private sellers that can post their inventory for sale. And it's going to be completely free, no upsells, no credit card. If you want a Carfax, you can get one and it'll be a fair price to offer on your listing, but it's only going to be a private seller marketplace relaunched. So there's a massive pivot there. And the reason is because EV Auto exists. EV Auto is my soon to be chain of national car dealerships that sell only electric vehicles, all brands exclusively used. And so I don't know if that changes the nature of your question, but it definitely is
it helps out.
Yeah.
It cleared up a lot in that last 60 seconds.
Yeah. Sorry. I mean, we haven't said yet, actually, this is the first time I've said publicly what EV Car's new, destination is going to be. And so EV Auto, I've been real public about that. We've built, I would argue, maybe, well, not one of the very best experiences for buying an electric vehicle in America. And one of the few places where you can try a bunch of different brands and talk to people that are real experts. And I think it's an interesting discussion about the car industry and why there's so much information out there about how terrible it is and sales are bad and dealers don't want to carry them. And I understand all those things, and I've got some opinions on that. But I think my business is a little different than maybe.
Gotcha. So basically, EV Cars, private party listing site, EV Auto, chain of used EV dealerships across the country.
That's right.
How many do you have? Any open right now? Do you have several open in multiple states?
Yeah, no, it's good.
Give us the data.
Yeah, so like I said, dealership's been in business for 4 years. In December, we acquired a piece of ground, empty piece of ground last year, designed and built the brand and the building, and opened in July of last year. of this year, and have had just record-breaking sales and profits. We've been profitable for 4 years straight, and we're real close to announcing our second location, and are in talks for others. And so,
Fantastic.
That's awesome. We got some other people we got to introduce you to.
Lots.
They may or may not be listening to this, but we got some people we got to introduce.
I know you guys
You
know.
may know them all.
Yeah, you guys know lots of people, so I'm down.
No, that's so cool. I'm excited to see what happens. We're gonna have to I think it's gonna be one of these things where we're just gonna have to have you back every 6 months on the pod just to give us the update, because this is just gonna be a rapidly moving thing. But this one, we've run out of time. I feel like there's so many more things that we have to ask you about your history and how that's played into this, but we'll get to that at some point. So Alex, on behalf of all of us, we really appreciate you joining us here on Auto Collabs.
Yeah, fun to meet you guys. Thanks for having me.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how
5. Sorry.
how likely is Kyle to be successful in life? You didn't let me finish the question.
Unbelievable.
I was like, I could have teed that one up even better. No, but on a scale of 1 to 10, how cool is Alex Lawrence?
Dude, he's a cool dude. Just real cool dude. Like, he's got so much random history, and he's entering this auto industry in kind of a roundabout way, but got his real head about him. And I wish everybody could have heard all of the side conversations we had afterwards, because you're like, you get in and you're like, oh, you're really thinking about this thing.
I think
I see what
he's tying his like the expertise with the EVs and the education needed, and just the kind of the business savvy, but his attention to brand and customer experience is definitely on playing on a different level. And I know a lot of people talk about, like, can you scale that level of customer experience and brand as you scale into more locations? And that's the big question. But I think that always comes down to how well you can systematize it, because you look at places like Zappos, who did an amazing job at customer service, and they were able to scale it because they put it into a system. They built a culture around it. So, I mean, I'm always cheering for the people that do it that way.
One of the things that stood out to me is, relatively new in this aspect of business, right? New as a dealer. We got a bit of his story, but how quickly also in that time frame he's pivoted and he's adjusting his strategy, and that his demeanor and cadence around it was like, yeah, big deal. Where when you contrast that against, what we typically see in a traditional setting, it's like, we have to pivot.
The beanie came back.
It did. We needed some handles.
But you know what I mean? It's like, oh my gosh, pivoting. I don't want to. They'll turn into Seinfeld. I don't even like pivoting.
That's really good. What's the deal with this pivoting?
Why would you pivot? I don't even want to pivot. But it's like, he was just like, yeah, because why not? I saw an opening. That's what pivoting is. Seeing an opening.
Yep.
And he's going after it. And I just loved kind of how nonchalant he was, whereas a lot of the industry tends to kind of lean into pivot as a bad thing. But it's like, no, we're moving a couch up a stairwell. It's going to be okay. Pivot.
Kyle and I have done that for Year in Extravaganza last year. I remember it.
Done that
very directly.
Well, hey, on behalf of Paul J. Daly, Michael Cirillo, and myself, Kyle Mountsier, we hope you enjoyed this conversation, and thanks for joining us on Auto Collabs.
Sign up for our free and fun to read daily email for a free shot of relevant news in automotive, retail, media, and pop culture. You can get it now at ASOTU.com. That's ASOTU.com.